I have returned.
Hello and welcome back to Baldur's Gate 3, where I continue my quest to prove that Sacred Flame is the best. The one rule is simple. I'm only allowed to damage my enemies using Sacred Flame. Last time we had just barely beaten Merkel, thanks to the help of Dame Aelin, who basically cheated to help us win. But now we move on to the final proving ground. Act 3. Can Sacred Flame go the distance? Can I beat this game with this terrible spell? But first, here's a quick reminder about my character builds. My main character is Lightbrain, otherwise known as Shadowheart's greatest rival. As a Light Domain cleric, she gets potent spellcasting, which adds her wisdom modifier to her cantrip damage. I also loaded her up with a bunch of spell save DC, which improves the hit rate of Sacred Flame. Will is a bard sorcerer. With the potent robe, he does extra damage with Sacred Flame based on his charisma modifier, and since he's a sorcerer, he has access to meta magic, which lets him do this, thanks to Twin Dispel. Meta magic is going to be extremely important, so everybody will be getting levels in sorcerer. Gale is an evocation wizard with potent cantrip, which makes it so his cantrips, such as Sacred Flame, would never miss. With the boots of Stormy Clamor and the gloves of Belligerent Skies, Gale can inflict reverberation on hits, a debuff that lowers dexterity saving throws, making enemies easier to hit with Sacred Flame. And last but not least, there's Lae'zel, a cleric rogue who I've built as more of a healer, so she has a bunch of items that boost her healing. Overall, my Sacred Flame build was surprisingly decent. I wouldn't call it strong, and I definitely wouldn't recommend it as a real build, but it was actually kind of working. The question is, will it be strong enough to beat the Nether Brain? That was the question, keeping me up at night. The final fight is a timed battle where I need to do a lot of damage in a short period of time, and I was honestly not sure Sacred Flame could do the job. But hey, we'll cross that bridge when we get there. Right now, I had to deal with these stupid Githyanki monks interrupting my sleep. Immediately I knew these guys would be a pain to deal with. Since they had high dexterity, they were harder to hit with Sacred Flame. Luckily, I had the Emperor on my side, so I gave him haste, hoping he would deal with the Githyanki Karate Club for us. Initially, it was going well. The Emperor stunned 2 of them with Mind Blast, which allowed me to land some guaranteed hits. But then the Emperor started making the worst combat decisions ever. He dominated a Githyanki. Then he immediately broke concentration by using telekinesis to throw a potion at will. He did this twice, and in the second time he actually healed the enemy. Why was he doing this? Why was he trying to sabotage me? I mean, I was never in danger of losing this fight, but the Emperor's refusal to help made it so much harder than it needed to be. Why did he wait until there was one enemy left that was about to die to use Chain Lightning? Afterward, the Emperor peer pressures me into taking this tadpole. Might as well. I then peer pressure everybody else into taking this tadpole. The elliptic powers are gonna be extremely useful for us. Kodo Weak automatically kills enemies if you bring them down low enough, and Mind Sanctuary creates a bubble that gives everybody inside haste. But my personal favorite elliptic ability is Flight. With it, I'm able to easily get into the city, and after a little chat with Aridin, we reach level 10, and Sacred Flame's damage goes from 2 to 16. To 3 to 24. Leveling up isn't going to increase Sacred Flame's damage anymore, so this is pretty much as strong as it's going to get. Lightbrain and Gale get their second level in Sorcerer, which means they now have access to Twin Dispel. Now that we're in the city, it's time to do a bit of shopping. From Sorcerer's Sundries, I pick up the Birthright, a hat that gives +2 Charisma. Remember, with the potent robe, more charisma equals more damage per will. I also grabbed the quick spell gloves, which lets me cast a cantrip for a bonus action once per short rest. From Healthsick I pick up the Cloak of the Weave, which grants 1 spell save DC. She also sells the Gemini gloves, which lets me target an additional creature with a cantrip, sort of like Twin Spell, and it even lets me target the same creature twice. It sounds pretty good, doesn't it? Except, it doesn't do any of that, because the item description seems to be completely wrong. It doesn't let you target another creature. It just also hits whoever's closest by, and it definitely did not let me choose the same creature twice, so that was disappointing. The item description made it sound so much better than what it actually was. What a ripoff. Oh no. Sparky, you gotta get out of here. It's too dangerous. No! Sparky! You'll pay for this. So anyways, I recruit Jaheira and replace Lae'zel. Now I've built Lae'zel as more of a support character, but I don't think that's really necessary anymore. What I really need is damage. So I gave Jaheira a similar build to Lightbrain's. That's 8 levels in Cleric for potent spellcasting, and 2 levels in Sorcerer for some meta magic. And to celebrate our new addition, we go to her house, and into her basement, where we pick up MacLeod's gift, which grants a point of wisdom, and makes Jaheira immune to curses. From there, we go into the basement of the Stormshore Tabernacle, and pick up the Amulet of the Devout, which grants +2 spell save DC. Usually stealing this amulet curses you, and you have to fight a diva, but since Jaheira is immune to curses, I didn't have to deal with that nonsense. The Mystic Carrion sells the Hood of the Weave, which grants +2 spell save DC. However, at this point, I was a little bit short on cash, but it was nothing a short trip to the counting house couldn't fix. And while I was here, I thought I might as well deal with the ballast in the basement. And I earned so much gold I could even afford a second item, the Armor of the Sporekeeper, which grants 1 spell save DC, but it also comes with 13 AC. And that was most of the items I wanted. The library now had an absurd amount of spell save DC. She wouldn't be missing her spells. And I used this power to go on a killing spree across the city. And I have to say, Sacred Flame was starting to impress me a bit. In Act 1, it was completely miserable to use. Every single fight was a horrible struggle, and I almost always had to resort to cheese to win. Well, look at me now. I was winning these fights easily, given these weren't the hardest encounters, but I was just finally glad to feel strong. I will admit I did cheat a little bit here, not that it had any effect on the playthrough or anything, but I wanted to save Mints, and the only way to do so was with a non-lethal melee attack. Sacred Flame would kill him, and I just couldn't do it to the poor guy. Have you heard the way people scream when they get killed by Sacred Flame? It always sounds horrifically painful. I couldn't do that to Mints, so I decided to spare him by having Jaheira slice into him with a sword. With that, we reach level 11, and Lightbrain gets her 3rd level in Sorcerer, which means she can now use Quicken Spell, which lets her use a bonus action instead of an action to cast a spell. Will actually already had this, but this is basically one of the most powerful abilities we have. It essentially doubles our damage, by allowing us to cast Sacred Flame twice a turn. The one drawback is that it does take a lot of sorcery points to use, but we have the ability to turn spell slots into sorcery points, which means we could store up a lot of sorcery points. Okay, I forgot to hit record for this part, but basically I tried to fight the Sharans. I got my ass handed to me, but I managed to run away. The problem is they chased me into this hall, and now they're just standing there, menacingly, and I didn't really know how to approach this fight. There were just so many of them, in this really narrow space. And usually, this is what I want to see. In normal circumstances, I would just blow them all up with magic, or barrels. Couldn't really do that with Sacred Flame. But then I realized I didn't have to fight them at all. I was just here for the Mirror of Loss. And eventually I figured out I could just turn invisible and walk past them. The Mirror of Loss can be used to give your characters +2 to any ability, but it involves passing certain checks, and I really fumbled it. The only one who got any ability points was Lightbrain, who got +2 to Wisdom. I was hoping for a little bit more, but this was what I had to settle with. Alright, I've done a lot of prep, but now it's time to start taking out some bosses. Gortash was first on my list, but before tackling him I had to deal with the Steel Watch, so I turned Gale invisible and had him sneak inside the foundry. I used Knock to unlock a door, but invisibility breaks and combat starts. Luckily, it's just one guy. He uses Phantasmal Killer on Gale, but Gale goes through the door and now he's safe. Or is he? Phantasmal Killer was still on him, and it was doing a lot of damage. I scrambled to heal Gale, but there was not a single potion in his inventory, and Gale fell. I couldn't believe it. Gale was defeated by a single spell. Well, it's Will's turn now. He can't do worse than Gale, can he? Well, he got to the door pretty easily, but as I click on it, Will decides to talk to the door instead of going through it. Combat starts, and this time Will has a lot more to deal with than Gale. But I got super lucky. Both Steel Watchers missed their attacks, and Will learned how to use the door. I get Gale back up, and now he could finish his mission. He delivers the bomb, and his lights out for the Steel Watch. From there, I attack Worm's Rock. It went pretty well, except for that part. It is kind of funny, isn't it? Why is Sacred Flame so over the top brutal? The screens! Their entire bodies just get torched. We were now on the doorstep of Gortash. I tried using Minor Illusion to try to draw somebody out, but they weren't taking the bait. Weird. This usually always works. I guess Baneites don't like cats. Well, since the carrot wasn't working, I would have to resort to the stick. I slammed down a Sacred Flame to start combat. The plan was to draw Gortash outside and fight him there, That way I wouldn't have to deal with all the stupid traps. But as I was executing this plan, I had a different idea. Maybe chests would come in handy again. In my last video, the power of chests was instrumental in defeating Mirko. Maybe they could help us again. The idea was to use chests to block this doorway. That way, I might be able to trap Gortash and his goons inside. I didn't have another chest, so I tried using crates, but they wouldn't actually stop me from moving past them. Apparently the ability to impede movement is a power unique to chests. So I had Lightbrain go somewhere else and grab a chest. And the plan seemed to work. The doorway was blocked. It worked really well, actually. Look at her. She's trying to dash, but she can't actually reach us. So her entire turn was just going to waste. Gortash tried to shoot the chest, but he couldn't actually do any damage to them since they were sturdy. Two of the Bainites did know to jump over the chest, but they had jumped straight into my territory, where I dispatched of them easily. And to deal with the ones inside, all I had to do was cast Sacred Flame, then move out of sight. And that was it. They were completely helpless against the power of chess. It was like shooting fish in a barrel. One of the Bainites did eventually realize they had the ability to jump, but it was too little, too late. With Gortash now alone, I used Hold Person on him just to make sure I couldn't miss. He broke out of it by transforming, but there was nothing to stop me from just doing it again. And that was that. That's 2 out of 3 of the Chosen defeated through the power of chess. Who knew a wooden box could be so powerful? From there, we face off with everybody's favorite red-headed wizard, Ron Weasley. I mean Leroican. It was a pretty straightforward fight for the most part. We had the Chosen One, Damien, on our side, so there was no way we were gonna lose. Roland suffered a tragic death, but we avenged him pretty easily. The fight was so easy in fact that Damien decided to take a break right in the middle of battle. And you know what? I wasn't even mad. She's done enough for us. She can get all the rest she wants. We deal with the silly wizard. And at the bottom of the tower, there's the staff I can't pronounce. It grants a spell save DC, but it also has a bunch of different modes. The one I was most interested in was Sizzling Cataclysm, which says whenever I deal damage with a spell, I inflict nauseous fumes, a condition that does acid damage. It sounded pretty good, but as I tested it, I realized noxious fumes doesn't trigger all that often. That's because enemies have to fail a saving throw in order for it to trigger. It took me 8 consecutive hits to even trigger it once, so it probably wasn't reliable. So I opted instead for Bolts of Doom, which grants lightning charges whenever I hit enemies with a spell. It should give Will a tiny amount of lightning damage. Sarvok was the next boss on my list, but first I had to deal with the bouncers at the door. But they were really good at their jobs, and they gave me a pretty rough fight. That one fireball nearly one-shotted Lightbrain, and they just had so many hit points to cut through. This was a very scrappy, back and forth fight, and I really wasn't using any sort of strategy. We were just hitting each other to see who died first. It wasn't clean, but I got the job done. For Sarvok himself, I was expecting a really easy fight. He's just one guy with a sword. Hold Person should do the trick. However, one of the Blood Ladies had a way of freeing him. So I tried grabbing him again, with a 95% success chance. And I failed. And consequently, Lightbrain got slaughtered. Okay, I had a little bit of bad luck, but other than that minor hiccup, the battle was straightforward. I had 3 different party members with the spell Hold Person, so even if he got free, I could just grab him again. And I may have cheated again here, because somehow I did 1 point of psychic damage using Hold Person. I don't know why it did damage. This has never happened before. But whatever, it's just 1 point of damage. It's not like it changed the outcome of the fight or anything. With this fight done, we are now level 12, and I gave Will his final build. 6 levels in Bard, 3 levels in Sorcerer, and 3 levels in Rogue. And the reason for the levels in Rogue is for the additional bonus action, which works really well with Quicken Spell. It means you can cast 3 Sacred Flames a turn. It was now time to face Orin, and I didn't really have a good plan for her. Sometimes you just gotta get in there and see what works. I started out with Will on this ledge, hoping it would be a safe location to rain down Sacred Flames. Well, combat started, and Orin immediately lunged towards Will, closing the distance in a snap of a finger. But this was fine, because the main thing I had to do first was to stop these guys from chanting, since they're providing Orin with the unstoppable buff. The problem is they all have Sanctuary, which means I can't target them with Sacred Flame. Luckily, you can easily stop their chanting with Silence. So that's what I do. I send Lightbrain in to drop a bubble, and they don't even react to the first one. The second time, however, they do not let it slide, and Lightbrain was forced into combat. And from here, everything fell apart at once. Lightbrain died instantly from Bale's Edict, and Will just got eviscerated. Bale's Edict is a condition Orin could put on you if you don't attack her, which basically just kills you at the end of the round. I was aware Orin had this ability, but I didn't even notice it was on Lightbrain. I probably should have accounted for it better. I probably should have done a lot of things better in this fight. We lost pretty badly. Luckily, I had a feeling this fight would go south, so I had already sent Chihiro away. I revived my party, then I was ready for round 2. This time, I used Minor Illusion to draw some guys over and deal with them without Orin's interference. Then I used Greater Invisibility on Will, and sent him in to silence the last 2 chanters. Now Orin's unstoppable stacks shouldn't refresh. I started attacking another cultist, but this time Orin got tired of all my cheesing, and she joined the fight. I focused first on dealing with the weaker enemies, but Orin was just doing tremendous amounts of damage, and for some reason she was directing it mostly at Will. Man, she really hates Will. But this was kind of fine. It wasn't like she could kill all of us at once, so if she wanted to focus all her efforts on hitting Will, we could just keep reviving him and healing him. As long as we kept relatively spread out, we weren't really in danger of getting wiped out. She just keeps going for Will. We were slowly chipping away at her, perhaps too slowly. Those unstoppable stacks took me forever to get through. Eventually, I decided to use the Scroll of Hold monster on her. Honestly, it felt a little bit dirty to keep relying on this sort of effect, but the battle was just taking so long. This way, I wouldn't miss my Sacred Flames. With Orin completely at our mercy, we ended it, and we claimed the final Nether Stone. There was but one boss left to beat. We managed to get this far, but the Nether Brain was a whole Nether beast. Could Sacred Flame do enough damage to beat the final boss? I honestly wasn't sure, even after all this time, but I was about to find out. Poor Lizzo. Orin killed her after we ran away. I confronted the Nether Brain, got blown away, and decided to become a Squid. A totally normal series of events. Then I turned Will invisible, and snuck past all this nonsense. And here I was at the Brain Stem, where I made my final preparations. I stocked up on sorcery points on all of my characters. Then I had most of my party drink an elixir of psychic resistance. Then I proceeded to the final battle. Now I didn't want to waste any time on these chumps. The Nether Brain was my target, so I used Greater Invisibility on Lightbrain, and within the same turn, she was able to reach the crown and start opening the portal. And to my surprise, nobody actually tried to stop her. They kind of just ignored her. And by the second turn, I had successfully opened the portal. But I immediately realized I just made a massive blunder, because none of my party members were anywhere near the portal. Lightbrain was there alone, and the countdown had started. I had opened the portal far too early. And what made it so hard for the rest of my party members to get there was the fact that they kept getting counterspelled. It was extremely annoying, and the one thing that made the Honor Mode fight so much more difficult was that the Nether Brain had Aegis of the Absolute, which makes it immune to damage types it took last round. And what that effectively means is that I really only have 3 turns to damage the Nether Brain, since there will be 2 rounds in between where it will be immune, and my first turn had already been wasted. And to make things worse, Chihiro got dominated, right outside the portal, so I wouldn't even have my full party. I had 2 rounds to destroy the Nether Brain and only 3 party members. This was all I had to work with. I laid down a Mind Sanctuary to give my party haste. Then I gave it everything I had. With haste, quicken spell, and an extra bonus action, Will could cast Sacred Flame 4 times a turn, but would it be enough? It didn't feel like it. The round was over, but the Nether Brain had well over half its health. With the Nether Brain being immune the next round, I only had 1 round left to finish it. The last round came and I did my best, but it was obvious I did not have the damage. 139. That's how low I got the Nether Brain. In other words, not low enough. If only Jaheira were in here with us, she could have made all the difference. 139 across 2 rounds. That's 70 damage a turn. With a hasted Jaheira slamming down 3 Sacred Flames a turn, it was definitely possible. If Jaheira didn't get dominated, we could have won. But that's not what happened. Instead, I lost my honor run, which was disappointing, but I wasn't about to stop there. I was gonna see it through, even in dishonor. So my plan then was just to be really sneaky, so I turned everybody invisible, in hopes that I could just sneak my way to the crown. But the Emperor got hit by chain lightning out of all things, which bounced off him and hit Jaheira. Then the dragon decided to join in, and all of a sudden, Jaheira was nearly dead. Yet despite this major hiccup, somehow I managed to get my entire party relatively close to the crown. But even though I had all my party members nearby this time, I kind of ran into the same problem as last time, because Lightbrain was last in turn order, which meant by the time it got around to her turn, and the portal was open, everybody else would have already taken their turns, and essentially I would lose out on the first round again. But this attempt turned out even worse than the last one, because Will got his brain sucked out before even entering the portal, and just to rub salt on the wound, Jaheira got dominated again. So yeah, I lost that one. This time I had Lightbrain drink an elixir of vigilance, giving her +5 to initiative. This would make sure she wouldn't come last. Theoretically, this should have fixed all of my problems. In practice though, it didn't quite work out, because Gale got fried by chain lightning, and Jaheira got dominated again. Why? How am I getting worse at this? By the 4th attempt, I realized maybe my entire approach to this fight has been wrong. This entire time I've been trying to skip all the enemies atop the brain, but maybe I should actually fight them. Initially I thought it would be a waste of my time, but I realized they're the ones giving me the most trouble. So I had a new game plan. I would fight. I was calling all of them in, all of the friends that I made off screen, and we would slowly advance towards the Nether Brain. And it was a rough fight. It was filled with carnage and confusion. But I kept my eyes on the prize. I gradually fought my way towards the crown, and we were actually doing it. We were winning. Well, they did still have this giant dragon on their side that I couldn't do anything about, but my allies were dealing with it. We took control of the platform. The Mind Flayers couldn't dominate Jaheira if they were all dead. I began opening the portal. Meanwhile, I took out the last Mind Flayer. Except for Lightbrain herself, I guess. The path now was clear. Nobody could stop us from jumping in that portal. I ordered everybody inside, and now the Netherbrain had to contend with the full force of my party. I dropped down to my sanctuary and the attack began. We unleashed a storm of Sacred Flames onto the Netherbrain, and we were doing good. We got over a third of its health in one round. If things kept up like this, we would certainly win. But for now, we had to wait. The brain was immune, so I used the second round to set up. I placed down a Mind Sanctuary and did a little healing. The next round came and we unleashed another volley of Sacred Flames. But I ran into a little problem this time. Gale somehow didn't have enough movement to get off the platform, so he exploded along with it. We were now in the penultimate round, and we all scurried to the safety of the last platform, and I brought Gale back to life for one last push. The last round was here, and I was about to cast the last Sacred Flames of this playthrough, and hopefully of my life. And we did it. We beat the Netherbrain and proved that Sacred Flame is the best spell ever. Okay, maybe not. But what we did prove is that it is possible to beat the game using only Sacred Flame. And that's what I love about this game. You can make anything work if you build around it right. It's a shame I couldn't get a true auto mode victory, but I'm just glad to know it's possible at all. That's it for the video, thanks for watching.